These women were helping to support them out of their own means. I think that's really amazing that passage is there, right? We don't often think about that. Like, we know that Jesus was traveling around, but we don't think about, like, where did he get the money from? His travel expenses, his food. We know that it was a pretty large group. There was Jesus, the 12 disciples, and then, as it says in this passage, many others. You know, the money didn't just appear. And in an age where women were seen as second-class citizens, economically oppressed, God chose them to be the ones who had the absolute privilege of funding the ministry of Jesus himself. Good evening, everybody. My name is Steph, and I just want to say a massive welcome to Lifepoint tonight. Now, if you guys don't know me, my name is Steph. It's great to be here with you. For those of you who do know me, you'll probably notice my voice is a little bit scratchy. I'm really sorry about that, okay? I'm speaking in a little bit of a lower decibel tonight, which apparently I've heard means that you can engage and listen better. Have you guys heard about this? They teach us, like, as teachers in high schools, you know, when you're yelling at a class of a really high decibel, apparently people don't engage. So I'm just going to use my low voice tonight, and then you've got no excuses for not listening. Does that sound like a good deal? Okay, great. We're going to pray that my voice holds out. Hey guys, it is great to be with you tonight. As has been mentioned many times already, we are in the middle of a really pivotal time for our church. We're actually at the end of a series, a 4-week series, where we have been going through talking about building for generations to come. And as a church family, we feel really strongly that God is calling us to build on our block of land. So for anyone who might be new here, if it's your first time, we actually have a block of land down the end of Anzac Avenue, and we feel like God is asking us to build a permanent space so that we continue the work of God that we believe he's doing through our church. All right? Okay, so I thought I'd give you a little bit of a recap so that you know what's been going on if you haven't been here for the last 3 weeks, okay? So week 1, Dan actually spoke to us, and he kicked us off by saying that he shared the story of the Israelite people when they were trying to go into the promised land in the Old Testament. And they sent a few spies in ahead of them. And the spies came back and they said, no, we can't go into this promised land. It's too scary. It's too hard a task. And they wanted to retreat. But there was a few brave men like Caleb, who had great faith, and they didn't shrink away. They forged ahead and trusted God. And then in week 2, Dan spoke to us again about how giving is actually from God. He gives us the heart, and he also gives us the resources. And then week 3, Jason spoke to us last week about how joyful giving comes from gratitude and the guarantee of God's blessing. And so I know what you might be thinking. It's a pretty big deal to be talking about money for 4 weeks in a row. What on earth is Steph going to be talking about tonight? Well, I'm going to be talking about something that I'm really excited about. And that is looking for a bargain, okay? I know, yes, thank you. Thank you for the nods in the audience. I appreciate it. I love spending money, okay? I am a self-confessed shopaholic. I loved it that Marina did that little plug for the money management course. Maybe I need to go. I actually do believe that I'm a good spender, but I just love that process of spending money, right? You know, looking for the bargain, comparing, the different deals, trying to work out which is the best investment. I love spending money so much that I even get a kick out of doing the groceries. And I get so excited that Christmas is coming because it's kind of like guilt-free shopping. It's like a necessity, you're like I get home and Dan's like, oh, babe, did you spend more money again? I'm like, yeah, Christmas. Like, you can't really argue with that, can you? Like, oh, I'm buying for people, So I don't mind what I spend money on, whether it's gifts for others, gifts for myself. I just love that process. I was actually shopping a few weeks ago with some friends of mine. And, we were just like going through, we do this every now and then, every few months, me and my girlfriends would go on a shopping day. And I came across this amazing bargain. I found 2 children's ski suits, like full ski suits, jackets and everything. And it was incredible. Like, it wasn't just like the Aldi version. No offense to Aldi. Aldi is great, right? But these were like full on, surf brand ski suits for kids. Usually they retail for about $80, maybe $150, that sort of price range. These ski suits were $15 each. What a bargain. So I bought them, right, because they're such good deal. And I get home to Dan and I was so excited to show him. I was like, look, babe, I got these 2 suits for $15 each. And he's like, babe, we don't have any plans to go to the snow. I was like, I know, but now we do. I've practically saved us money. Anyone shopaholics in here? Anyone like to spend money like I do? Give me a wave, come on. It's a safe place, thank you. Up the back there, yes, I know, I can see you. It is a safe place, no judgment. So yeah, I do believe though that I can stick within a budget. I'm not an irresponsible spender. I don't even have to spend my own money. I love this process so much. I really love encouraging other people to spend their money also. My friends can attest to this, or maybe my friends' husbands can testify that I love helping other people spend their money also. Which has suddenly dawned on me maybe why Dan has asked me to speak in this particular series. But more on that later. We're going to be working through a passage tonight, which I think is often overlooked. So if you do happen to have a Bible on you, we're going to be going through a chapter in Luke, which is in the New Testament, and it's Luke 8, verse 8. And it's about some ladies who found the most incredible, valuable investment in the history of the universe. Let's read. After this, Jesus travelled about from one town and village to another, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom of God. The 12 were with him, and also some women who had been cured of evil spirits and diseases. Mary, called Magdalene, from whom 7 demons had come out. Joanna, the wife of Chusa, the manager of Herod's household. Susanna, and many others. These women were helping to support them out of their own means. I think that's really amazing that passage is there, right? We don't often think about that. Like, we know that Jesus was travelling around, but we don't think about, like, where did he get the money from? His travel expenses, his food. We know that it was a pretty large group. There was Jesus, the 12 disciples, and then, as it says in this passage, many others. You know, the money didn't just appear. And in an age where women were seen as second-class citizens, economically oppressed, God chose them to be the ones who had the absolute privilege of funding the ministry of Jesus himself. I just love this, right? It wasn't the men that were paying. It wasn't this miraculous money appearing in their pockets. It wasn't manna falling from heaven, which we know God can do because he did it in the Old Testament. It was actually the women who used the limited money that they had access to support Jesus. It says they supported them out of their own means. We don't really know who exactly gave what, but at that time, you know, we can assume that they didn't have access to a lot of money. Maybe some of the women who joined him had some sort of trade or skill that they could use to earn money along the journey. We can kind of assume that maybe some of them had access to a bit of money. Like, I love that it mentions Joanna by name. It says she was the wife of the manager of, so King Herod, he was kind of the ruler at the time. And you think that the manager of his household would have a bit of access to money. So maybe he was sending Joanna an allowance that then, you know, she could spend. It is very clear, though, that it was the women who were using their own money and they chose to spend it on the ministry of Jesus. I can kind of relate to this picture. I don't know how you guys manage your finances in your house, but in our household, Dan is the one who manages the money. He kind of pays our bills, he pays the mortgage, he pays our tithes, which we choose to give back to God. And then I kind of get like the rest of the money as an allowance to work out where we spend it, right? Because I'm good at the spending, okay? And so what we do is I stick to a budget and I make sure that I can allocate it in the different areas. Now, I have to make a confession. Dan doesn't know that I do this, okay? I love that Dan and I use preaching as a time to confess secrets in front of the whole church. But what I do is whenever there's cash that comes through our house, I just kind of like save it away in a little pencil case. Because then that's kind of like added bonus onto the budget, right? Because I've got to allocate my money in the budget, but then I get this like extra cash that I hide away in a pencil case. So that when I go on my shopping trips, it's kind of like extra that I get to spend, right? So I was on one of my shopping trips a few weeks ago and I was standing there rifling through my purse, and my friend Beck was with me and she was kind of standing watching me as I paid for this item that I'd chosen to buy. She had this look of awe and amusement on her face. And as I finished, she started to giggle. She was like, I'm so impressed. She was like, you look like a little squirrel, just like ferreting around, like trying to make up, to buy this dress with like $5 notes and $2 coins. And she was so astounded that I managed to get the, big amount to pay for this item with just loose change. And I kind of feel like that's maybe like what these women were doing. Whatever money they could get their hands on, they were just squirreling it away and saying, oh, Jesus, here's the next installment. Let's go to the next town. And I love that Luke, or the gospel writer of Luke, he points that out for everyone to see for the rest of history. A few humble women funded the salvation of the universe. Do you reckon that they thought their money was a worthy investment? I reckon yes. And I would even argue that they thought it was a bargain. My big point from today, from a true bargain hunter, is that investing in the mission of Jesus is an absolute bargain. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, here we go. Here's another person standing up the front talking about money, trying to get me to spend my money. I hope that you realise that's not my heart today. I just really want to share personally why I'm so excited to be able to give to this project, to give to this mission that we believe Jesus is calling us to as a church. So I'm going to give you two main reasons why I think that investing in the mission of Jesus is a bargain. Number one, we get to see lives changed forever. These women that we read about in Luke, they knew the message and the power of Jesus changes things. It says in the verse, also some women who had been cured of evil spirits and diseases. Poor Mary even gets called out. It says from whom 7 demons had come out. It's like the writer wanted to be really clear, like Mary, she was super messed up. She had 7 demons, right? And so these women, they had had their lives changed. They had experienced it. They knew the healing and what comes from being saved by Jesus. They were so motivated to give the little amounts of money they had because they themselves had experienced the power of Jesus loving them, accepting them, and offering them hope. When I was 13, I had my life dramatically changed by the message of Jesus. I went on a Christian camp called Splash Out in my holidays. Anyone ever been on a Christian camp that significantly impacted their lives? Throw your hands in the air for me. Yeah, awesome, so good. And I know some of you have even been on this very camp that I'm talking about, Splash Out. Anyway, it was just an incredible week. I went as a high schooler. You can kind of see me up there on the left. That's me in year 8. Wearing some crazy costume. We got to hear about Jesus, the message of Jesus every single night. And for me, I was a Christian kid. I grew up in a Christian home. But this, pivotal moment just really cemented my faith. I got to be mentored by great Christian leaders. I got to share my faith with other kids my own age. I got to experience a new freedom in worship that I'd never experienced before. And it was just such a life-changing camp for me that every year I would do the squirreling thing again. I would save up my cash and I would make sure that I went on that camp every single September holidays when I could. Now, because it had been such a life-changing experience for me, when I left high school, I became a high school chaplain and I got to go back and lead on this very camp once again. And then a few years later, I actually also got to direct the camp. And it was an amazing opportunity to be able to see hundreds and hundreds of kids have their lives changed by going on this camp. Christian kids, non-Christian kids who were meeting Jesus for the very first time, kids who had really messy home lives and they, came away on camp even just to get a little bit of respite. People who were able to be connected into youth groups because of this camp. We just saw amazing things happen year after year. And because I was so excited and so impacted by this camp, I would go to my husband every year, Dan, lucky he's a generous guy, and I would say, Dan, I can't, not all these kids that need to come on this camp can afford to go. Do you reckon, we could spare some money to send some kids on camp? And he's a good man, and he said yes. So every year we would contribute some of our own money to get kids on this Splash Out camp. And then it didn't stop there. I saw here at Lifepoint, we had quite a few young adult leaders who I knew that they would be brilliant mentoring these kids on Splash Out Camp. And I thought, if only I could get some of these leaders to come on camp too, then I know that not only the kids' lives would be changed, but their lives would be changed as leaders. And I went back to Dan and I said, Dan, these leaders can't afford it. Do you reckon we could pay a little bit more money to get some leaders on camp? And he's a good man. He said, yes, we can do that as well. And I don't know if you guys remember, but last week when Jason shared his sermon, at the beginning he interviewed two people, Trudy and Luke. And Trudy was actually, she mentioned in her interview that being paid for to come on Splash Out Camp by me and Dan, and then coming along on that camp was one of a pivotal moment in her faith journey that really solidified the trajectory of where God was taking her. And Dan and I got to be a part of that, which was so awesome. And, you know, there's heaps of stories just like that. It was such an incredible time. Spending money on the mission of Jesus through Splash Out Camp was an absolute bargain for me. I'd personally received already, and then I also got to witness the ongoing healing and salvation of hundreds of others. When I think about a bargain, I ask myself a few questions, right? Is it really worth it? Is the price right? Am I going to regret it later? And when I think of the hundreds of young people whose lives were changed, who met Jesus and who are now following him forever, I can answer those questions really easily. Dan and I probably spent maybe $2,500 getting kids and leaders on camp. And paying $2,500 for lives to be changed forever. What a bargain. That's awesome investment of my money. And anyone here who's had their life changed by Jesus knows this truth. There is nothing better on this earth. You know, when we hear stories, like a few weeks ago, we had Annie who was baptised here, and she shared her testimony about how her life has been dramatically changed. And a few weeks before that, we had another guy, Joel, share his testimony about his life being radically changed. And I know that there's many stories of you guys in here. You know, it's happening, it's working. Jesus is meeting people in our church and changing their lives every day. Our mission is a worthy investment because we get to see lives changed forever. Investing in the mission of Jesus is an absolute bargain. Number 2. We get to be a part of something incredible. Jason highlighted this last week in his sermon. Because we are so grateful, and we know that the women we've read about in Luke were super grateful, what comes after gratefulness? Response, right? We can't help but respond. Now, these women knew that they couldn't do anything to repay what Jesus had given them. We can't repay, you know, the gift of grace and the gift of life. But I love in the verse 3, it says these women were helping to support them out of their own means. That word support just stuck out to me. Because isn't that so true? When you're so grateful for something, you just want to support that adventure, that mission. You want to be invested. You want to contribute. And that's what these ladies did. But it's really strange, isn't it? That God, the God who owns everything, he has access to all resources. When he comes to earth, he decides, oh yeah, I think I'm going to use a few ladies with not much money to get me my food. He loves to get us involved. In fact, it is so important to him to have us involved in the mission. That's what he always chooses to do. We see examples of that time and time again, of God choosing to use people to do his work all throughout the Bible. I'm always trying to get my kids to eat food. I don't know if you've seen them, but they're pretty scrawny looking things, and they don't eat. And they really don't eat healthy food. Like healthy food's just, they don't want a bar of it. So I was thinking the other day, okay, maybe I could get them to eat eggs because that's protein. No, they didn't want the eggs. So then I thought, okay, maybe if I could make them an omelette. Because, you know, with omelettes, you can kind of like chuck in some random veggies, get the protein, all the things. When I started telling them about this great thing called the omelette, they did it once again, not interested. So I had this brainwave. I was like, I'll get them involved. So then I've got Joey, he's a 3-year-old. He's stirring the eggs and it's slopping all over the bench. And then I've got Harmony, she's chopping up the tomatoes. I swear that there's some fingertips included in the omelette. After that, I've got Zeke, you know, sprinkling in the cheese. Anyway, it was fantastic. Not only did these kids eat the omelette, they enjoyed it, and then they became little egg omelette evangelists. They were like, oi Dad, you got to come try this omelette. It's amazing. So brilliant to get them involved. It would have been so exciting being one of the crowd following Jesus around, seeing firsthand the benefits of investing in the ministry of Jesus. If you go home this week and you want to continue reading on chapter 8 in Luke, you'll see stories directly after this passage where it talks about how Jesus went on to do more healings. He was conquering evil and healing the sick, and just incredible. And they would have been seeing this firsthand. They would have been seeing exactly where their money was going. Imagine yourself there at the beginning. What would you have given to be a part of funding the salvation of the universe? See, if we truly believe that Jesus changes lives, if we truly believe that he can offer us freedom from addiction, relationships restored, if he can give us joyful lives where we live with purpose, if he can make us feel accepted and not rejected, if he can give us rest when we're feeling really weary, what would we give? How much is one person's life changed worth? And that's only one life. Imagine if we could give a financial gift that would help change thousands of people's lives. Whatever amount we come up with is still an incredible bargain. As we've heard over the last 4 weeks, as a church, for us to continue the mission of Jesus, sharing the gospel and bringing a light to our community, we need a building. We have programs and ministries that are growing, praise God. We have new people coming to know Jesus and hearing about him every week. Isn't that amazing? You guys missed your cue, okay? I'm going to say that again, and then we're going to get like a little woohoo, okay? So we have new people hearing about Jesus every week. That is awesome. And how wonderful, how gracious is God that he chooses to use us, this little church in Rothwell, and yet he's using us to do his mission. But we need a permanent space to facilitate these activities and to house these people. We have a huge task ahead of us, $2.5 million, which is massive. You know, part of me wishes it was like the old days. Back in the old days, if you wanted to build a church, it was the pastor. He just kind of gathered a bunch of people who had good skills and was like, all right, let's go build this thing, right? They'd build it with their bare hands, lay the bricks, make the wood, whatever happens with construction, make the wood, do whatever that thing is. I watched The Block. I should know better. Anyway, I'm kind of relieved though, because I mean, as we know from Dan's sermons, he's not the best with his carpentry skills. And thank goodness health and safety has come a long way. So we can't actually build this building ourselves. We'll be doing whatever we can ourselves, but for most of it, we can't lay the bricks, but we can pay for them. I want you to imagine for a moment, okay? Imagine that you are standing in our brand new courtyard after we've raised the money for this building. I want you to picture that you're looking over at some bricks that you've paid for. And those bricks are the ones that hold up a wall to a space where there's an Alpha course running. And as you look over into the room, you see an elderly gentleman, and he's hearing through Alpha for the very first time that there is a Heavenly Father who loves him and who's proud of him and who wants to spend eternal life with him. Or maybe you're standing there in the courtyard and you look behind you and you look over to the cafe space with a coffee machine and you see that someone has brought over their mate from uni and they're offering them a free cup of coffee and explaining to them about what, a loving community looks like. And for the very first time, this guy actually gets to experience it. Or maybe you help pay for the playground. And when you're sitting at the lights on Anzac Avenue during your week, you look over and you see that playground just like swarmed with kids. And you know that while the kids are there, there's actually a whole lot of mums, one mum in particular, that's being supported and cared for by our Lifepoint volunteers. She talks about how this was the week that she was about to lose it, that this is the only moment of peace that she's had in her whole week. Or maybe you walk into the hall space, and you look up at the roof that you've helped pay for, and you know that every week there are hundreds and hundreds of people that are sitting under that roof that get to hear the powerful and refreshing good news, grace of what God has to offer them. And then you see people walk out those doors again and they take a Bible and they take a box, just like someone did last week. And you know that you helped funded that. Guys, we get to be a part of something incredible. Those ladies that were mentioned in Luke, Mary, Susanna, Joanna, and the group of others, they have gone down in history, in the most famous book in the Bible of all time, as the people who funded God's ministry. Imagine being them. Imagine sitting in heaven, being those ladies, and every time millions of people come through the door, the gates of heaven, and they go, yep, I was part of that. I helped those people get here. What an awesome feeling, right? They got to be a part of something incredible. And I believe that will be the same for us. I believe that when we invest in this project, that we will actually get to see the benefits in our lifetime. But I also believe that one day we'll be sitting in heaven and we'll watch as generation after generation after generation gets the benefits of what we invested in. And we'll be able to sit there and be like, oi, Mary, yeah, we invested in that. How awesome is that? So cool. Now, I know that you guys are a super generous church. All I can say is that you won't regret this. What a bargain to invest in the mission of Jesus. I want to thank you so much as a church. You guys are so generous. I know that you give in many ways and you follow that prompting when God says, here's what I want you to give and here's the amount. I'm so excited about where God's going with us and what he's calling us to, because he's done it before and he'll do it again. And I have great faith in that. I'm going to leave you now with some words of encouragement from a great man of God on the north side of Brisbane who planted a church 25 years ago. This church is called Bridgeman Baptist. Some of you guys know it as Bridgie. And they have seen thousands of lives transformed by the gospel. His name is Peter Sweetman. He's actually Dan's uncle and he's a bit of a mentor to us. And he's been really invested in our journey. He's been encouraging us along the way. He's been praying for us. And we just asked him to share a little bit of his heart because, he's someone that's done it before. He's been in our position going, it's risky. Is it worth it? And he's seen the benefit of stepping out in faith, making a sacrifice. And so he's got a word that he's going to give to us just now as I close. Why don't you turn your eyes to the screen? Thanks, guys.
It's such a joy to be sharing with you today as you set your faces towards constructing a church home there in Rothwell. I remember the day that Dan and I walked over the property there and I thought to myself, what an incredible location God's given to you. Next to that major intersection there at Rothwell. It's incredible. I've been talking to a lot of people actually about your church there and what God's got planned to do. And there's a whole lot of people that are itching for that building to get built there. So all the people who drive by up there are going to know that the Church of Jesus Christ is not dying, as everybody keeps telling us. It's alive and well, and it's alive and well in Rothwell. I'm actually sitting here today in a church that God called us, a church building that God called us to build way back in May 2001. It had come after about 9 years worth of hard yakka, praying, planning, believing, saving, a whole lot of saving and a whole lot of overcoming a myriad of problems too. And then we walked in that day. I walked in that day and what a joy. Faith had become reality. And faith is going to become reality for you guys in the not too distant future. It's going to be absolutely amazing that day. You look forward to it already now, won't you? I've been praying for you guys for quite a long period of time, actually, that God do something amazing. And it's a very, very special honour and privilege to be called into building or constructing something new. A new expression of the Church of Jesus Christ. And you guys are being called into that, a very high calling, a very high honour. And God's got a plan to use that kingdom resource to help you guys love and serve and minister in that community and to see thousands upon thousands of people come to know and love Jesus. And it's thousands, folks. It's a huge legacy that is being formed here in your community. When Dan rang me actually and said, would you mind just saying a few words as an old church planter? He didn't know that God had placed in my heart and my wife's Marie that we would be joining you in actually the accumulation of resources that you need to see this building constructed. We are wanting to store up some more heavenly treasure. That's what we're after. And we know God's got a plan to really bless you guys, and we want to be included in that as well. And so you're not going to regret this, I want to tell you. You will not regret investing in God's kingdom plan here for your community. I still talk to guys in this church here who made costly sacrifices 20 years ago, and we're still rejoicing about the great things that God's done. It fills us with joy since the things that happened then and the things that have happened since. Well, so that's going to be your portion, guys. It's the joy of Jesus as you invest here. And so, get that building up. There's a whole lot of people waiting for it. I'm waiting for it. I can hardly wait to bring Marie and myself on that first Sunday. We're coming out on the first Sunday, actually, to worship with you and shout out a few hallelujahs. So God bless you guys and Godspeed on the holy calling that he's given you.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did and you want more Lifepoint content, subscribe to our channel right now. Or if you're in the area around Moreton Bay or Rothwell, head to our service. Sunday, we'd love to see you there. lifepoint.org.au for all the details. We'll see you soon.